Her husband died in the sea in order to save his white moonlight. When I was notified, the corpses were almost eaten by fish. The staff asked me if I could still catch it. I waved my hand and resolutely did not waste public resources. With the police certificate, I directly sold the account to my husband. After contacting my husband's lawyer, I finally couldn't help but laugh out loud. A bottle of champagne was opened in the evening. I could only take half of my property, but now I can take 2/3 of it, and I have to celebrate. My husband, Nathan, is dead. He took his white moonlight Chloe on a ferry cruise, encountered waves, the boat hit the reef, he gave up his life-saving chance to Chloe, but he died in the sea. When the police notified me, he was gnawed by a shark. The headless corpse floated on the water, and a few fishermen wanted to fish him up, but then another shark came, holding him in his mouth and running away. So they only salvaged Nathan's wallet and phone. Nathan is a high-profile entrepreneur in the city, and everyone wants to get his body back. The police asked me if I needed to find a rescue team to catch a fish. I waved my hand, no, resolutely do not waste public resources. An hour later, I took the certificate given to me by the police and went to cancel the account, and the staff shed 2 tears when they saw his ID card. Nathan is a good man, you mourn. I laughed out loud. She was right, Nathan was a good person. He was going to get a divorce certificate with me in 2 days, and he got a marriage certificate with Chloe. As a result, he died, leaving me with a large inheritance. Without a body, I could only burn some of Nathan's stuff to serve as ashes. So I burned the useless waste paper in his company's office, plus his daily necessities. After burning, I put the ashes in a plastic bag and thought about buying an urn tomorrow. I contacted a lawyer and began liquidating Nathan's property. 6 companies, 8 cars, 66 stores, 88 houses, as well as gold bars in the bank, funds, and stocks in hand. Just when I was counting all of this was about zeros. The lawyer told me, 2 of the properties were transferred to Chloe when Nathan was alive. What? I don't allow others to ruin my auspicious number. I turned to the lawyer and said, I should be able to recover what Nathan gave her. As expected of a lawyer with an annual income of 1 million, one point is clear. Nathan's soaked phone was restored that day, and my lawyer's letter was delivered to Chloe's house in the afternoon. Chloe was there when I had just opened a bottle of champagne. She picked up the cup and threw it on my face. Megan, what do you mean by sending a lawyer's letter? I hid aside, and the liquid in the cup fell on the carpet. My Italian handmade rug. I looked at Chloe with a sad face. This is also counted in it, and I will be compensated when the time comes. Whoever gave you the courage to ask me for these things, Nathan gave me these things, we're getting married soon, these are all mine. Chloe, do you understand the law? I sneered, what Nathan gave you belongs to the joint property of the husband and wife, and I have the right to ask you to return it. Chloe's face turned pale and she took out her mobile phone. You definitely didn't discuss these things with Nathan, I'll call him now. You wait, he can't spare you. Seeing this, I laughed out loud, don't fight, it won't work, Nathan is in the shark's belly. Chloe's eyebrows and eyes were twisted together. Megan, you are too vicious, you two are husband and wife anyway, do you need to curse him like this? I waited for her to finish yelling, and took out Nathan's ID card cut into 2 pieces in her bag. What? You don't believe it? This is his ID card, which was just cut in the morning. Chloe looked at the 2 halves of the ID card, stunned, still not believing. It must be some trick you are playing. I will call him now, you don't want a penny of money. She dialed a few numbers on her phone, and soon the phone in my bag rang. I took out Nathan's phone from my bag, and the word wife jumped on the screen. Chloe's face turned pale in an instant. Why is his phone with you? I told you he was dead. What about the corpse? Eaten by a shark. I spread my hands. Chloe, did you forget the cruise you 2 went on together? Why did you come back by yourself? I thought it was. Chloe squatted down directly, her whole body began to tremble, her eyes turned red all of a sudden, and tears fell like pearls. I couldn't help but roll my eyes. My Italian handmade carpet, tears are also very dirty, okay. Chloe cried for a while, then suddenly stood up and ran towards the pillar in the living room. "Nathan, I'll die with you." I was so frightened that I quickly took a few steps back, picked up my phone and dialed the phone. "Comrade Police, come on, someone committed suicide in my house." The police arrived soon and, after learning about the situation, took Chloe away. Before leaving, I didn't forget to remind her. "Remember to return my things, or I will sue." One of the police comrades tilted his head to look at me, his eyes seemed to be saying, "She's like this, and you stimulate her." I shrugged my shoulders, "That's a few million, no one is in a hurry." The next day I started thinking about giving Nathan a funeral. After all, he had so many rich relatives, and I had given them a share in the past 2 years. Now is the time for the harvest. I informed Nathan of a bunch of relatives and found a master to show him the cemetery. As a result, I don't like the feng shui treasures that the master saw, I like the one at the edge. Naked, nothing long. The master said, "No, if you are buried there, your husband's descendants will live very hard." I clapped my hands. "That's great, that's it, feng shui is so good, it's cheap." Anyway, Nathan and I don't have children, let alone any descendants. After buying a cemetery and urn, I found a funeral company and gave Nathan a pretty well-organized funeral. At the funeral, I pretended to cry and took that money. Sure enough, they are all rich people, and the money is getting thicker and thicker, so thick that I almost laughed. As the funeral was about to end, Chloe came. She was dressed in black, holding a 7 or 8-year-old boy in her hand, and walked directly towards Nathan's photo. The already quiet funeral scene suddenly became quieter, and everyone's eyes and ears straightened. "Liam." Chloe's voice sounded weak, "Get on your knees. This is your dad." When the little boy was about to kneel, I ran over and helped him up. "Children, Dad can't recognize it randomly." Chloe was anxious, "He is my son and Nathan's." "Oh." I lowered my eyelids. "You said yes, I don't believe it, who can prove it?" "We can prove it." 2 more people appeared at the door. "It's my mother-in-law and father-in-law I haven't seen for a long time." "Megan, you bitch." As soon as my mother-in-law saw me, she pounced on me. "My son is dead, you notify everyone and don't notify us, what do you have intentions?" How could I let her hit me, step back, wave her hand, and immediately someone came up to stop her. I said, "Mom, didn't you tell me not to contact you unless I died?" It seems that my mother-in-law has forgotten. That year, she kicked me out of the house and said this to me. "You poisonous woman, my son must have been killed by you. You do this kind of indiscriminate thing for money, you can't die well." My mother-in-law rushed towards me all the time, probably trying to scratch my face. Fortunately, I hired a bodyguard to hold her tightly, leaving no gaps. "Mom, you don't know how Nathan died, he was with Chloe." "Liam, come and call grandparents." Chloe interrupted me directly and pulled the child over. The mother-in-law immediately bent down and touched the child's face. "This is our grandson, who looks exactly like Nathan when he was a child." Saying that, she looked at Chloe. "Chloe has really worked hard for you for so many years, you are pulling the child so big by yourself." Looking at this scene of recognizing relatives, I was a little disgusted. I kindly reminded, "Mom, you believe everything she says, I don't know who this child is." Hearing this, Chloe was angry. "Megan, are you saying that this kid is not Nathan's?" "Let me tell you, this child was born to me and Nathan. When the 2 of us broke up, I was pregnant, and I have been living with my child all these years." The mother-in-law also followed. "This child is our child at first glance, you are a bad woman, you can't give birth to children yourself, and you are jealous that others have children." Seeing that her mother-in-law was focused on her, Chloe also became angry. She began to cry about how difficult it was to raise children in recent years, and how much discrimination a single mother has suffered. "Oh yes?" I poked her mercilessly. "How did I hear that you married someone else abroad because you were dumped because of cheating?" "You fart." Chloe burst into tears and turned to her mother-in-law and said, "I can endure it myself, but it's really pitiful that the child doesn't have a father." My mother-in-law was also infected and scolded me. "Megan, you hen who can't lay eggs, you don't understand if you haven't been a mother." "I understand, Chloe." I said quietly, "Mom, even if this child is really Nathan's, there must be evidence, otherwise whoever brings a child over can say that it is your grandson. Do you recognize it?" "I have evidence." Chloe's back stiffened. Nathan didn't believe that Liam was his child at the beginning, so he did a paternity test, and now the paternity test is still in the drawer in his office. "Mom, you can go and see." Yo. It's not a big deal yet. They have all changed their mouths. Not only me, but also everyone here. Their expressions became very intriguing. This funeral was really lively. As soon as the mother-in-law heard this, she hurriedly asked someone to go to Nathan's office to get the paternity test. I stopped again. "Mom, let's wait until the funeral is over. So many people are here, it's not good looking if it's big." The mother-in-law snorted coldly. "What? Megan, are you afraid that the paternity test will come out? This child will be able to compete with you for the inheritance, right? I tell you, be more atmospheric. If I were in your position, I would definitely recognize Liam." I can't persuade it at all." After Chloe said the specific location of the paternity test, someone went to Nathan's company soon. I also took the opportunity to make a phone call. In less than half an hour, the man returned. As soon as she saw him, Chloe greeted him. "How is it? Got it back?" The man looked embarrassed. "No." "How is that possible?" Chloe screamed. "Didn't you look for it properly?" "I've read it all, and the people in the company say." The man replied while leaning towards me. "You don't have to be afraid of her." The mother-in-law saw the clues. "What do the people in the company say?" "It is said that the wife burned those things early." "Oh, blame me." I stood up. "I'm not afraid of seeing things and thinking about people, so I burned all Nathan's things, but I didn't see any paternity test in it." Chloe's face darkened and she pounced on me to hit me. "Megan, you poisonous woman. You did it on purpose. You don't want my son to go home." She looked so terrifying that my bodyguard hurriedly stood in front of me. "Chloe, don't be like a mad dog. Don't say I didn't see that paternity test. Even if I did, how can you prove that it's true? You don't even fish for Nathan's body, how can I prove it's true?" Chloe pulled her throat. "Megan, you are such a villain, you want to monopolize Nathan's inheritance." My mother-in-law didn't know that I didn't let Nathan die in the sea, but when she cried like this, everyone knew. The mother-in-law's face darkened. "Why don't you fish for my son? You can't even let him fall to the ground. Why do you inherit his inheritance?" "Because I am his wife." I laughed. "Mom, why are you talking to an outsider? She is my grandson's mother, she is not an outsider. You can't even lay an egg, you are an outsider, and return all my son's money." "Mom." I called out to my crazy mother-in-law. "Do you know why I haven't had children for so many years? It's not that you have done too many bad things and can't give birth. You really can't give birth." I smiled coldly. "But I can't be born without me." "What do you mean?" The mother-in-law was stunned. "It can still be my son." "Yes, Nathan can't give birth." I clapped my hands, and immediately someone handed me a document bag. "The ugliness of the family should not be publicized. I didn't intend to say it, but you have been pushing me. Then I can only be sorry for Nathan. This is his physical examination report for 10 years. 10 years ago he was infertile. How did Chloe have children with him?" The mother-in-law opened the document bag and the paper inside fell. Chloe picked up the paper and looked at it again and again. Her face turned white instantly, and she kept shaking her head. "Impossible, this is fake. There is also a hospital deduction stamp on this. If you don't believe it, you can go to the hospital to confirm." I saw Chloe go to take her mother-in-law's hand again, and was shaken away by her mother-in-law who was frowning and reading the physical examination report. I pretended to shed a few tears, turned to my relatives and said, "I'm sorry to let everyone watch the funeral. The funeral is over, everyone can go." When everyone left, their faces were full of joy that they couldn't wait to share. I didn't care about those 3 people anymore, put on my sunglasses and left. As a result, within a few days, I received a letter from Chloe's lawyer. It says about the division of Nathan's estate, and Chloe's children should also have a share, and Chloe filed a lawsuit in court. Within a few days, I received a notice of pretrial mediation and asked me to arrive on time. When I received it, I was so angry. I called my lawyer directly and asked why I sued Chloe before the court session, and she sued me for mediation first. The lawyer explained to me for a long time, and I didn't understand much, to the effect that it was two systems, and it was normal for her to deal with it first. I was not very happy to participate in the pretrial mediation. Chloe said, "Liam is Nathan's child." I said, "Nathan can't give birth, I have a medical report." "Your physical examination report says that sperm activity is low, but it does not mean that there is no activity. The doctor said that there is a possibility of conception." Chloe looked proud with a smile in the corners of her eyes. "Please check the book next time." "Oh, so what?" I yawned. "Do you have evidence that this kid belongs to Nathan?" "Of course there is." Chloe slapped a piece of paper on the table. "This is a paternity test between Liam and his grandfather, which proves that my son is related to Nathan's father, and Nathan's father only has one child, so Liam is Nathan's child." I glanced at the lawyer, who kindly reminded her, "This doesn't count." The mother-in-law slapped the table. "Why don't you count?" "Megan, your heart is too small. This child belongs to my son, and it is natural to inherit my son's money, even if it is an illegitimate child. What's wrong? It's normal for a man to have a few people outside. Besides, this child is not only Nathan's, but also yours. How happy it is to have a child." I smiled. "Mom, don't get excited. What the court wants is a paternity test. What is parent-child? Dad and son are called parent-son. Besides, Mom, don't you really know, in fact, Dad still has a son?" My mother-in-law was stunned, and I took out a paternity test directly. Originally, I didn't want to say it, but I didn't expect my mother-in-law to help an outsider, and I didn't want to hide it from my father-in-law, which my father-in-law asked Nathan to do for him before, and it was his other child who reported it to his parent-child. I took out the photos and videos again. Here are the photos and videos of the child. Now he and his mother Quinn live in my father-in-law's villa in the south of the city. My father-in-law goes twice a week. There are a lot of nannies and bodyguards, and the chefs are all invited state banquet chefs. I ate once, TSK. That taste. The more I talked, the darker my mother-in-law's face became, and I didn't forget to persuade her. "Mother-in-law, don't be careful. It's normal for men to have a few people outside. This child is not only my father-in-law's, but also your mother-in-law. How happy it is to have a child." I will return what my mother-in-law told me. I saw that my mother-in-law was completely crazy and slapped the table to leave. I laughed so hard that I said to her back, "Let's go, the mediation is not over yet." The mother-in-law left, and Chloe saw that she had the upper hand. She pinched her thigh with her hand, and tears fell. "Megan, I know that Nathan and I have done something sorry for you, and you have resentment in your heart, but you also saw that Liam looks exactly like Nathan. How could it not be his child? You just want to leave something for his child for the sake of you and Nathan for so many years." She said this too pitifully. Everyone in the room was a little moved. I began to understand why Nathan became so dismissive when he saw her. This face was too suitable for selling miserably. But the miserable target was wrong. I sneered, and it was still the same sentence. "How do you prove that the child is Nathan's?" The mediation was successful because Chloe withdrew the lawsuit. Even if she didn't withdraw the lawsuit, there was no way, unless she went to the sea to fish Nathan out. Then the King Lao Tzu came, and there was no way to prove that the boy was Nathan's. When I got home, I took a hot bath for myself. After I was comfortable, I called my aunt who was a nanny at Nathan's father. My aunt told me on the phone that after my mother-in-law went back, she directly questioned her father-in-law, and she had a fight with her father-in-law, saying that she wanted the mistress to look good. Seeing that the matter was exposed, the father-in-law didn't pretend to do it, and directly told his mother-in-law to divorce, and now he only has that one child, and he is ready to give all his property to the son of the mistress. The mother-in-law was crying, making trouble and hanging herself at home, so the father-in-law went directly to Quinn. The mother-in-law is used to being powerful at home, and the aunt and the nannies don't like her very much, so when she said these words, the aunt laughed very loudly. Finally, my aunt asked me, "Then your father-in-law cheated, will you leave the house?" I said to her, "Watch less TV series, so you won't leave the house if you cheat." Even when Nathan divorced me and decided to give me half of his property, he had a conscience. I think my mother-in-law probably won't divorce her father-in-law. After all, it's impossible for her father-in-law to divide half of her property. But what I didn't expect was that my mother-in-law actually divorced my father-in-law, but my father-in-law had already transferred his property, so my mother-in-law was only assigned a villa. The mother-in-law was so angry that she went directly to the villa in the south of the city of her father-in-law and beat the mistress. Unexpectedly, the mistress called the police directly, and the mother-in-law stayed in the bureau for a few days, and finally even lost the villa. Now the mother-in-law can barely live on Nathan's inheritance, but Nathan's inheritance cannot support her to live a lavish life as a wealthy wife, so I heard that she has been looking for a project recently, ready to invest herself and earn some pension for herself. Watching the excitement, my case against Chloe for the return of property finally began. There is no suspense in this case, naturally I won. However, for a month after winning, Chloe didn't pay me back my money or house. She must not have enough manpower to move so many things, so I couldn't help but be kind-hearted, so I directly found a big truck and drove over, and came down with a few guys to knock on the door. Chloe held the door and refused to open it. "Megan, you are trespassing on a private house." I found a stool and sat down. "Don't buckle my hat randomly, the court has already sentenced me to this house. What kind of trespassing into my own house is it? You come out quickly, otherwise I will smash the door." "If you dare to smash the door, I will call the police." I said, "Okay, call the police quickly. Do you see if the police let you out or let me leave?" Chloe naturally didn't dare to call the police. This was the police, and she must have left. Just as we were at a stalemate, a black extended Lincoln stopped behind us. I looked back. Isn't this my father-in-law's car? Within a minute, my father-in-law got out of the car. Seeing my battle, he frowned and asked, "What's going on?" "Dad, she wants to drive me away." As soon as her father-in-law came, Chloe opened the door, and she stood next to her father-in-law with tears in her eyes. "You take care of this crazy woman." I tilted my head to look at them. What kind of magical scene is this? Why is Chloe so close to my father-in-law? My relationship with my father-in-law is not very good, but it is not as bad as my mother-in-law. But after listening to Chloe's words, he turned to look at me. "What's wrong with you? If you don't stay at home, what is it to bully their orphans and widows every day?" I haven't spoken yet. Chloe spoke. "She wants to rob my house." I said, "This is not your house, the court has already ruled to let you move out." The more her father-in-law listened, the more confused she became, so Chloe cried and told the matter again. The father-in-law was angry. "This is my son's house, he can give it to whoever he wants, why do you want it back?" I used to think it was just my mother-in-law who was unreasonable, but I didn't expect my father-in-law to play a scoundrel. Fortunately, I wasn't afraid of him at all. I rolled my eyes. "This is the house I bought after Nathan and I got married, it belongs to our marital property, he gave her this house without my consent, I can get it back, the court has also awarded me. What is the use of you saying not agree, you can't fight another lawsuit." My father-in-law was bluffed by me like this. Chloe looked at her father-in-law aggrievedly. "Dad, I have no money, and I will return the money and house to her, so how can Liam and I live?" My father-in-law pondered for a while and spread his hands at me. "How much?" "I'll pay it back for her." I was very surprised to hear this, and I took it out of my bag and the water flowed. The father-in-law looked at the pages one by one, and finally his face turned blue. "Megan, you are poor and crazy, you can count $1 of mineral water." I was also aggrieved. Flies are meat when they are small, and these money are my hard-earned money. After reading the flowing water, the father-in-law threw it directly to his secretary. "You can call her the money later." I quickly thanked him. "Thank you, Dad." "Nathan is dead, don't call me Dad." "Okay, thank you, Uncle." The father-in-law looked at Chloe and said to her, "You move to me today and give her the house back." What else did Chloe want to say? Her father-in-law glanced at her and said very domineeringly, I'm not better than you, Liam is my own grandson, even if the law doesn't recognize it, I admit it, his name must be in my will. Chloe thought for a moment and honestly made room for me. She is not stupid, after all, her father-in-law's wealth is several times that of Nathan. I watched her happily move those things into the car, and I kindly reminded, Chloe, there is no pie in the sky, I advise you to think about moving it again. The corners of Chloe's mouth rose wildly, you just can't eat grapes and say that grapes are sour, after all, no matter how rich Nathan is, he is only a rich second generation, how can he be compared to him? It's a pity that you don't have children, even if something happens to the old man, you can't get a penny of the property. When Chloe finished packing everything, she graciously asked me to inspect the house. I sat on the sofa and didn't move, and suddenly asked her. Chloe, you already knew you were pregnant before you went abroad, Nathan's family likes you so much, and you two love each other so much, why are you separated? I remember when Chloe first returned to China, Nathan didn't sleep that night, tossing and turning in bed looking at his phone, afraid of missing any news. I don't know what kind of reverse scale this sentence touched Chloe. She withdrew her smile, her face a little flustered. What does this have to do with you? Nathan is dead, why are you asking about this? I smiled, it's nothing, I think you'll come back and beg me. Chloe laughed twice as if she had heard some joke. Whoever asks for whom is not necessarily. Half a year later, Chloe came. She knelt in front of me, her voice hoarse. Megan, please save my son, only you can save him. She climbed over to me and grabbed my trousers with her hand. Nathan's father is going to kill him and imprison him, I really can't help it, please help me. I took a sip of tea and asked, what's going on? It turned out that the father-in-law's current child was sick and needed a kidney transplant, and the father-in-law couldn't match him, Liam's genes were matched, so the father-in-law took her to his villa. At first, Chloe felt that she was a mother and son, but the development of events slowly got out of her control. Her children always have inexplicable injuries on their bodies, and they will also encounter falling objects from high altitudes when they walk on the road, until Chloe learns that her father-in-law's child needs a kidney transplant, and she understands the abnormal situation during this time. She wanted to take her child away, but her father-in-law noticed it. The father-in-law stopped the child with his bodyguard and kicked her out of the house. Then you shouldn't beg me, you should go to the police. I sincerely suggest to her. Call the police, it's useless. Chloe cried and said that when the police went, her father-in-law's attitude would become very good, and she would let her take away the child, but Chloe's son was spoiled by her father-in-law during this time, knowing that she would not have such a good life without her grandfather, and she did not agree to leave. So I can only come to you. Chloe had a lot of tears in her eyes, please help us, after all, Liam is Nathan's flesh and blood. Why should I help? This is your child with Nathan, not my child with Nathan. I have an attitude that it doesn't matter to me. Unexpectedly, Chloe said, because Nathan loves you. Chloe told me that the person Nathan has always loved is actually me, he is going to divorce me, and the things he does with Chloe that disgust me are all because he is terminally ill. Nathan doesn't have much time left, he doesn't want to delay you. Chloe told Nathan about her love for me, and I didn't have much of a fluctuation in expression when I listened. I know he loves me. I also knew he was dying. After all, drinking and going to the club every day, but also relying on taking medicine to maintain physical strength, how can you not get sick, how can you not die if you are sick and do not take medicine? I get Nathan's annual physical examination report for him, and I know his physical condition better than him. So what? I sneered, should I save your son? Chloe didn't expect me to be so cold-blooded, and said in hindsight, you don't love Nathan at all. It's not just that. I hate him. Chloe was desperate, and there was no one left to help her except me. She also went to her mother-in-law, but her mother-in-law invested some time ago and lost the last bit of money. She went to her father-in-law every day to ask for money, and now is the time to flatter her father-in-law. How can she offend him? Liam, what should I do? Mom can't save you. Chloe beat her chest sadly. I watched her go crazy for a while, and then said, Chloe, do you remember, I asked you why you separated from Nathan in the first place? Chloe's tears stopped. If you tell me the truth, I can consider saving your son. Chloe bit her lip, and after a few minutes, she made up her mind, because Nathan hit someone that year. That day, Nathan took Chloe to the mountains to see the stars, and on the way back, there was a heavy rain, and Nathan hit someone. The woman lay on the ground with blood and flesh blurred. But Nathan was calm and scared, and sent Chloe home first before dealing with the matter. Chloe thought Nathan would go to jail for this, so she broke up with him the next day and went abroad with the help of her family. After not having a good time abroad, he found that Nathan was not only not in prison, but also became richer, and he begged for nothing. As I listened to these words, my hands trembled, but my voice was low and terrifying. Then do you know what he did with the body later? I asked Nathan, and he said he lost a lot of money to his family and was fine. Damn, he farts. I threw the cup in my hand directly to the ground, and the glass shards flew everywhere. Chloe looked at me in surprise, as if she understood something for a moment. Chloe, do me a favor, I'll get your son out, how about it? Chloe looked at me with a gloomy look on my face as I stepped back, and finally nodded. 2 days later, Chloe went to the police station and reported that Nathan had been hit and run. After all, Nathan was dead, and even if he didn't call the police at the time, he didn't know how to investigate. However, it rained heavily that night, and a pile of bones rushed out halfway up the Camel Mountain. The police confirmed that the bones belonged to a rural woman named Suzanne at the bottom of Camel Mountain, who had been reported missing by her family 8 years ago, and that the bones were nothing more than a part of her body. The case was so serious that a special investigation team was set up in the city. After that, someone went to the Public Security Bureau, saying that on a rainy day 8 years ago, he saw a car hitting a person on Camel Mountain, and left after the collision. The police took this number to check, and the owner of the car 8 years ago was Nathan, an outstanding entrepreneur in the city. 2 weeks later, Nathan's parents were arrested for helping their son hit and run and cruelly treating the bodies of the victims, throwing them into the mountains, rivers, and garbage heaps. However, too much time has passed, and only the bodies on the mountain remain. So far, all the truth has been revealed. And 2 days later, I went to the Public Security Bureau to collect Suzanne's ashes. Holding the urn, I couldn't cry. At this time, a man also came, and the woman was dressed in black and sat down next to me. She reached out and touched the urn, and tears fell. Mom, the daughters have avenged you. I looked at Quinn's face, my lips trembled, and I called out to her, Sister. Quinn took me into his arms and stroked my back. It's all over. Suzanne was my mother. My father had a high fever that year, it was raining heavily outside, and my mother went out to see a doctor. But as soon as she went out, she never came back. Dad also died at home because he did not receive timely treatment. For a while, the whole sky in my house collapsed. After burying my father, my sister and I looked for my mother everywhere. Finally, I heard that someone had seen a luxury car hit my mother, and I went to ask, but the person said that he was wrong, and I knew that he was afraid of causing trouble. Later, through legal means, my sister knew the license plate number of the car. We looked it up and found Nathan. From the beginning, I married Nathan to investigate the truth about my mother's death. So I don't care what kind of person he is, I don't care how he is with other women. After 2 years of dormancy, in Nathan's dreams, I finally pieced together my mother's whereabouts. I wanted to sue him, but there was no evidence. So my sister began to contact Nathan's father. Nathan deserves to die. Even if he didn't die in the sea, he would die because of the disease, and if the disease didn't die, I would put him in jail sooner or later. In the end, Nathan's parents were sentenced to death, and Nathan's family property was inherited to his sister's children. My sister's child did not find a suitable kidney source in the end and died in the spring of the following year. After knowing the news, Chloe, who had not seen her for a long time, came out again. She took the previous paternity test and kept saying that her child was related to Nathan and asked for a portion of the property to be given to her. It's a pity that fighting for property with my sister also requires strength. My sister wouldn't be so indulgent with Chloe, she just said a word, and Chloe, a crazy woman, was quiet. Do you really think that your son's injury was caused by Nathan's father? I heard that he had just stabilized in elementary school. I was thinking about how to find some trouble for him. Chloe turned pale. Now as a society ruled by law, what do you want? It can't be done, it can make you sick. What kind of ability is bullying children? Okay, bully you. Sister stretched out her hand. Your family doesn't have money without me, and it's easy to bankrupt your family. Chloe now eats and lives at her parents' house, and when she hears this, her face turns blue. No matter how unwilling she was, she could only leave obediently. But I was very vindicated, so I contacted Chloe's ex-husband who was far abroad. Chloe's previous divorce was not because she cheated, but because her ex-husband gambled and gambled all her money. I accidentally revealed to her ex-husband that Chloe now lives in her parents' house, and her mother's family is quite rich. Her ex-husband returned to China the next day. I didn't hear much about the rest, only that Chloe and her ex-husband were kicked out of the house later. On Qingming Day, my sister and I went up the mountain to pay respects to our parents. We put the graves of the two of them together, which was also my father's last wish. The weather was nice that day, it didn't rain. After we kowtowed, a gust of wind blew. There is an unknown wheat fragrance in the wind, which is the smell of my mother. I think maybe my father came to visit us with his lost mother.